foreground, right? So I'm going to use some more of that yellow. I'm going to make this line right here just a little bit more dark, a little bit more yellow, to show that this is right here. Right? Light touch. Okay, great. So as this is all drying, I'm going to take almost all the water out of my brush, right? And I'm going to come back in with this dark pigment right here, very, very lightly, and I'm going to add extreme details to this tree to show a little bit more depth and realism, just to this tree. Everything else should be a little bit blurry, because remember, this is the background, this is the foreground. So let's go back into the tree. Now this should be extremely, extremely dark. Why? Because there's barely no water and there's mostly pigment in this brush right now. And you could see that right here. So let's do it again. Okay, let's come up with this. Okay. Okay. And this should dry relatively quickly too. That's the nice thing about watercolor, is that it dries very quickly. But that could also be the hard thing about it too, because you know it dries so quickly that you really can't go back and fix a mistake. But if you start looking at art, not about making mistakes, but about reacting, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong with this particular painting. But instead of worrying about that, if those accidents do happen, how can you make them fit into the image? So with that same process, but with a little bit of water, I'm going to add a little bit more brown. Let's say 50-50, 50% water, 50% pigment, back into this tree. Okay. And the reason is because I want this tree to still have multiple colors within it. I don't want it just to look like a dark black tree, okay? So as I'm doing that, everything around this image is starting to dry. So after I'm done with this, I can go back in and put more values and colors within the mountains, the clouds. And that's a nice thing, you know, you can focus on this, then we'll go back to this, and by the time this is done, I can go back in over here and complete the image. Now the last thing I want to do is make sure my brush is clean, of course, which the easiest way is just to pinch it, right? Add a little bit more shading to this tree, because again, the tree is my focus. A little bit more. Okay. Cool. So let's clean my brush again. Let's go back in and let's work into these mountains. I'm going to use red now, right? Which is a little bit darker than this, orange. I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna make these mountains just a little bit more depth in it. All right, a little bit more color. Ooh, that looks good. Same thing over here. Let's make sure that that goes outside the image. Same thing. Kind of blending that into the bottom. Okay. Same thing over here to this mountain over here. Okay. Now lastly, let's put this a little bit more like this. Boom. Now lastly, I'll put a little bit here, but I don't want to put too much value because I want this mountain to seem a little bit further away than the rest. Okay, fantastic. Great. Now, let's go back to these clouds. A little bit more darkness in certain places, just to give it just like an extra touch. Okay, fantastic. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to put maybe like a very watery brown right around this tree. And then after that, I think we're done. So with a lot, first let's make sure my brush is clean. Very simple to do that, like this. A lot of water right here in the brown. Right. Let's take some of that off. Let's just test it. There we go. A little bit more. Just want a little bit of brown tone right here. You have this tree and you have all this white space. Just a little bit of brown. I know it seems so minor, but if you're gonna work on something, if you're gonna really put your time into something, and it's always better to try to do your best to try to make it as good as you can with the time that you have, as compared to just letting things go. So that is it. What I want you guys to do is I want you guys to finish this. Show me what you got. Remember, you're going to make mistakes, and that is okay. I would rather you make mistakes and try than just play it completely safe, which is always something that, I hate. Cannot stand that. So push yourself. Remember, clean your brush. That's half the battle. All right, you guys have a good day. Bye.